Somaliland is indeed a beautiful place where you can get to know so much, especially from their history. Today we are at the Hargeisa Cultural Center, where we will speak to Dr. Jama, who is going to tell us what actually happens here at this cultural center, and we'll also get to see the art gallery and also the library, where they have archived a lot of information from way back until now. My name is Ngugi. Thank you so much, Dr. Jama, for welcoming CBA TV right here at the Hargeisa Cultural Center. I love the place. It looks beautiful. And when you walk around, you can see so much of culture represented from the art, and everything just looks cultural. I love it. And for the sake of the people who might not know what the center is all about, kindly explain, what is the Hargeisa Cultural Center?
Thank you so much for visiting us. It's a pleasure to have you here, and it's a pleasure to see a local but international, if you want, medium of communication that's taking place from Hargeisa and telling the world what is available in Hargeisa in terms of art and culture. So thank you for coming. The Hargeisa Cultural Center is relatively young when you say that from the time we established it. This will be the 5th year that we are having the Cultural Center. But the story little bit comes further because of we started the Hargeisa International Book Fair 12 years ago. This will be the 12th anniversary of the Hargeisa International Book Fair. And the Cultural Center is a sort of a continuation of what we were doing in the 6 days of Hargeisa International Book Fair, but in a long, if you want, year-long program. We have mainly targeted to a category of people, young people. So you will see the Cultural Center is more young and more vibrant and more colorful because of our targets to youth of Somaliland. We have also a sort of a generational gap. I have always a problem when we focus the problem of Somaliland, young people, targeting only on them. What I feel problematic is that there is a generational gap in Somaliland. So what we tried at the Cultural Center is striving for is to connect and fill this intergenerational gap. So if you can send Monday morning, you will see the old poets, the group of Somaliland Poets Council, which are aged, and they will be sitting there, communicating with the young people, telling the stories of what the kind of art and literature we used to have. At the night, you will see full of house of young people, maybe event, whether it's a music or whether it's a debate or whether it's a traditional dance, but you see younger people. So having that two categories separated and unfortunately disconnected because of what happened in Somaliland, the Cultural Center tried to connect that gap. So if you want to see as a place where everyone feels safe, everyone can express themselves in an art form that they want. People know us at the book fair because of that, it's the flagship program. But the book was always for us in the middle of the ground, sort of an excuse. And around the book, we built every form of art that you will see at the Cultural Center, the most richest archive of analog cassettes containing Somali music, or Somali oral history, or Somali poetry, or radio programs that were wired in 16th, 70s, and 80s. We will find old manuscripts, Islamic manuscripts, circulating in the Horn of Africa. And some of them were even unknown to the academia because of people know about Somali people as an oral society. but there you will find a vibrant written culture that existed to produce manuscripts in the coastal area from Berbera to Zaila in 1800, mid-1800 onwards. So it was a surprise, even for us when we got, and you will see them in the gallery. You will see the rare books section where we have an entire collection of books about the Somaliland history from the colonial and pre-colonial history of Somaliland. And the eldest books that has been ever written, you will find copies in PDF. When we couldn't locate a hard copy, you can find sometimes copies hard printed, and some original various edition works that you will see. We have a collection of artifacts, man-made, that talk about the Somali culture in Somaliland. You will see the traditional games, board games that we used to have. We connect, I don't know if you heard the word ethnomathematics, yes, which sort of to teach mathematics in a culturally sensitive way. You will see when you are going to the cultural center, a place where quite Somali mathematics is being made to explain the young people that mathematics is not something that's coming from outside of the world, but everyone has their own mathematics, and we want to use that kind of mathematics in the schools. So we want to take from the cultural center back to the curriculum and the formal curriculum, so the culture is seen within the school system of Somaliland. Typical example, you will see, when you were studying probability, the classical example people use is the game of dice or the game of cards. Now imagine a young African kid who never heard about the game of dice. You have to teach first the game of dice and then probability, or vice versa. You teach probability and then they might become expert in the game of fortune. To avoid all these things, we want to collect, document, study, publish, and preserve for the future all traditional elements and indigenous knowledge produced locally that can be used in the formal system of education in the progress of the country. And you will see the history of the country in pictures. You have entire, now we have a collection of photographies from the artist Yusuf Dahir, one of the best photographers that we have, and he pictures the state of the country in 10 years and 10 years what's going on. So you reflect while you are going to the cultural center, you read and see and visualize the history of these people and where we are coming from. With that, we want to base where we are going to, and that's where it's coming, the connection between the young generation and old generation of Somali people in Somaliland, to make sense of their history, to make sense of their identity, to make sense of where they are coming from and where they are going to. So, in a nutshell, the cultural center is that place where you can find the cultural and art expression of Somali people in Somaliland.
How do you manage to collect all this information? Where do you get these books from?
For instance, the books were coming from the book fair, because of when we started in 2008, the book fair, we realized that there was no book circulating in Somaliland. There was no books written in Somali language. So we committed ourselves to bring every year 5,000 books in each year that to bring here in Somaliland. So that was the starting point. But then we thought we never accepted donations of books from outside or from other institutions, because of you will see that the library became unique because of we want what the young people and what not anymore young people want to read, instead of giving books just because they are books. So we have a sort of a wish list where we ask people what you would love to read. Of course, there are classics of works like all autobiography from Mandela to Churchill to Sayyid Muhammad Abdullah Hassan to Hadrawi, the works that we have published. So we targeted certain areas, biographies to people who can inspire young people, mainly African thinkers, African scholars. Then we have the history books, another entire selection. Then we have everything has been published for Somali studies. So those categories we look for. If there is a book published in somewhere in the world, we try to get a copy of that book. Because of, if you want, we are working also as a sort of a national archive to preserve this content and this knowledge produced in Somali language. But at the same time, we ask people what you would love to read. If you go to the library, you would see a form and you would just sign the book that you would love to read. And then in a month, every month we publish one time at the wish list of the month, and in a week the library have and owns that book. So the library grow up with the readers, grow up with the interests of people. That's the reason why it's becoming unique and people are coming. You would see people coming 8 in the morning at the opening, waiting, and then leaving at 9 p.m. because of we leave until 9 p.m. The library open. So that's the area of the book. Interesting area that is really difficult to find was the archive of cassettes that we have. We have almost 14,000 cassettes that we collected. These are mainly early 70s because of the analog cassettes we were producing industrially in the early 70s. But we have also some older in 50s, 60s with the real cassettes produced and registered voices of people that are not anymore with us, poetry that you couldn't find elsewhere. But most importantly, during the Mohammed Siad Barre regime, when it was difficult to record and to recite a poem openly, people still used it to poetry, but used it underground. They recorded in cassettes and distributed these cassettes. We have the entire selection of this oral poetry, which is really rich, and not many people didn't study even from the scholarly works that can be produced. So that's how we get it. We started to buy the first, and then we announced that we would love to preserve and digitize the Somali music, and people donated. We started with 3,000 cassettes that we bought for ourselves, and then now we are 14,000, and that a huge number of cassettes came because people feel that we are preserving for them and digitizing in order we don't lose that huge amount of knowledge. So that's how the cassette came. Then we have the maps that is around us that you will see now. Some of are really, really rare maps that are known original work. It's like the map just behind you is a map written by Hunt in 1948. Hunt was a scholar in the colonial period who was a sort of anthropologist, historian, geographer, and he used it to travel with the Somaliland clans at the border with Ethiopia. Every clan 6 months and go in and fro and see how the nomads are moving. And it's a really interesting work in terms of anthropology. And that's a map that we located by chance because it was in the dust in Hargeisa in 1991. And then we preserve it. Now it's one of the most important documents that we have. People donate. Those maps were donated by, some of them by Ahmed Ibrahim Awale, who is a scholar based here in Somaliland, who felt that this is an important document and it's good to preserve at the cultural center. So people are coming and donating the things that they feel that's tell us some important things.
What impact have you had so far to the society and to the people of Somaliland?
I think people felt the ownership of their own culture again, because that unfortunately what was missing recently. If you ask young people about the history of Africa, they wouldn't know anything about it. They may know better the streets of Paris and London more than Ethiopia, Addis Ababa and Nairobi, more than even within the cities in Somaliland. So I think one of the most important things that the Cultural Center for this few years made is to give a chance to the young people where they can get information, but where they can build their identity through their own art and culture. Young people didn't know how beautiful was the music in early 40s, 50s and 60s. And then 70s there was an explosion of Somali song, but they don't have that story. We built again and recorded and showed that something that they can be proud of for them. Another area that I feel that we had impact is that there are new forms of art that was not present in Somali culture. Some of them, like paintings. Painting was not part of the Somali art. Somali's oral, the major art is an oral poetry and then written work. But the paintings wasn't part of it. When you go to the Cultural Center, you see how wonderful painters we could rise the last 10 years, or the last mainly 5 years, without not having any school of art in Somaliland. And you will be impressed with the quality of the product, not only the paint and the colors and how they use use the color, which is really, really impressive. But also the story behind every single paint that you will say. We will have some time, and inshallah when you come back, but if you focus, when we will explain to you those paintings, some of them are really sort of books, the story they are telling. And the people who are the young Somalilanders at the age of 20, 25 years old have never had access to school of art, self-taught, and became wonderful artists. One last area that I feel that we are having good impact is to give space to the young people, men and women, of course. For example, in the traditional dance, the entire room that in front of us is dedicated to them. There are 16 groups that come every afternoon. They are rehearsing, teaching others, doing some exercise, and then they go because of it's difficult for them to have a place where to go and exist as a dancing group, traditional dancing group, because of the society is not welcoming so well, because of they cannot pay the huge amount of money that are required in order to hire a house, and then they are of course disturbing, because of his traditional dance, where the city where people live. So they found here a safe space, free, that they don't need to pay, and they found home, and they are producing beautiful, really, really beautiful, revised cultural, traditional dance. So that's another area. I think most important thing is that Somaliland needs a debate. Somalilanders need a place where they can come, talk about the issues that matter. The cultural center saved that, gave a platform where people can come, organize the events that they want. How big it might look controversial, we allow that events should take place and people should talk openly in their mind. People should be free to express themselves. And if they have to go to the hotel where they have to pay, if they have to access a public space that will be difficult to have to access, the cultural center answer this and give response to that. Because every young Somalilander, or not anymore young, if they have an issue, important social or political or whatever it is, historical event that they want to organize, just they need to listen themselves and then took the reservation. So I think the most important impact that the cultural center is having is to create the platform and the space where people can express themselves. And that's not something really easy to find.
Well, we are so happy that you invited us here. We've learned a lot, and actually it is true. You have created an environment for young, old, all people of all ages to feel that they have the freedom to express themselves and to learn about their culture. Thank you so much, Dr. Jama.
It's a real pleasure to have you, and thank you for coming, and I hope this will be the first time, but not the last time that we're going to visit. Thank you.
Well, indeed, as you have heard it from the Managing Director, Dr. Jama, the Hargeisa Cultural Center is indeed a place where the people of Somaliland have the environment to express themselves in different ways. Thank you for watching. I am Wangui.